My name is Lean Tran Layton, and I'm a practicing immigration attorney in the United States. And I'm an immigrant myself. Throughout my life and career, I've had the privilege of meeting people from all over the world who have immigrated to the United States. And I've heard some amazing stories, and I want you to hear them too. These stories will make you feel a range of emotions, but most of all, I hope you will be left feeling inspired. Welcome to the Immigrant Voice. If you like what you've been hearing on this podcast, share it with others and leave us a comment or review wherever you're listening to it. Also, remember to subscribe so you can hear our upcoming episodes. I want to include an introduction for this next episode. This interview took place a few months ago, and my next guest is from Afghanistan. And obviously, so much has happened since that time, since I last interviewed him. The president has ordered the U.S. to withdraw from Afghanistan, and we all saw the chaos that ensued afterwards. And regardless of if a person's on the left or right or somewhere in between, I think we all have been left wondering how this happened and why this happened. You know, we were there for 20 years, and all within, a 24-hour period or so, the Taliban, the very enemy that we were fighting, has taken over. And that leaves a lot of us wondering why and how did that happen? I'm sure that many of us saw the video of the people who were on the tarmac at the airport, who were running alongside the airplane, and the men that were hanging on to the airplane. And then as it took off in air, we saw people falling from it. And I remember seeing the video and just feeling so shocked and sad and angry and wondering how this all happened. And I think a lot of us, myself included, especially who are from the U.S., we take for granted the freedoms that we have. You know, these people were willing to risk their lives in the name of freedom. They wanted to get out of Afghanistan so badly that they were hanging on the side of an airplane. I've never seen anything like that in my life. I'm sure most of us have never seen anything like that before, and it was shocking. And then obviously, we've all seen the images and the stories about things that are happening there to women and children and to the people who helped the U.S. And it's just so sad. You know, this last year and a half has been an interesting one, to say the least. I mean, it just seems like there's been so many things that have happened in our country, around the world, and all of these tragedies. And it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with and a lot to digest and wonder what's going on in the world, right? Like, what's going on right now? I know that there's been a lot of talk about special immigrant visas. I'm sure that people have heard about those in the news. And I personally haven't dealt with any of those before. But essentially, for special immigrant visas, they are visas that allow for interpreters or translators from Iraq or Afghanistan to immigrate to the U.S. and get their green cards and then eventually citizenship if they choose. So just to give people an idea, the special immigrant visas, the requirements are that the person has to be a national of Iraq or Afghanistan, and they must have worked directly with the U.S. Armed Forces or under Chief of Mission Authority as a translator or interpreter for a period of at least 12 months, and they must have obtained a favorable written recommendation from a general or flag officer in the chain of command of the U.S. Armed Forces unit that was supported by the translator or interpreter, or from the Chief of Mission from the embassy where that person worked. So obviously a person has to apply for this. From what I understand, there's a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy in this process. I've heard that people have waited years and years to get an approval or to get a denial after years and years of waiting. And that makes me wonder why. Why all the bureaucracy? You know, these are people who helped us, who helped the U.S. in this war, who are our allies, and some of them are being left behind, and they're scared, they're worried about their family, and I hope that there's something that can be done for them. I'm sure many of you have seen the headlines that said that the Taliban was going to be more inclusive and allow for more rights for women, but I'm sure most of us don't believe that. I'm sure most of us have heard stories already of the things that they're doing to these women and children and the interpreters and translators who helped us. And they're not good. They're awful. And it just, again, I think we need to ask our representatives what's going on, what happened. And I think that goes for any issue, right? If there's any issue that you have, you should contact your representative and ask them these questions. Ask them hard questions and demand answers from them. I hope with this episode that people will get a better understanding of the Afghani people and that they really want the same things we have. They want freedom. They want peace. They want to just be able to live their lives not in fear. And a lot of us have that privilege. If you are interested in getting involved or donating, I've left some links in my show notes. Let's get to the episode. So I'm super excited for my next guest, who I actually just happened to have met. Didn't know that I would be meeting him, and I just had the fortunate enough to have the opportunity to meet him through a Lyft drive. So, and I think also what I'm really excited about, and I've always wanted to talk to somebody from this country, is I think that as Americans, we always hear just a one-sided story. And I think it's going to be really interesting to hear more about where my next guest is from and what his country is like. So go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the listeners where you're from.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. My name is Zubair. I'm from Afghanistan. I came to Salt Lake City 3 years before with the family together. I was trained as a lawyer when I came to Salt Lake City. I have been doing different jobs.
So you only came to the U.S. 3 years ago?
Yes.
Wow. So obviously you've seen a lot happen in Afghanistan. And we'll definitely get to your career and how that all happened. But tell me about your life in Afghanistan. So I've read some books, some fiction books by, and I cannot remember the author's name, but he wrote like The Kite Runner and another book. And when I read them, they talked a lot about the culture and how vibrant it was. And then obviously they talk about the period of when the war happened and just how devastating it was. So I want to hear from you, what was your childhood like? And then just experiencing those different wars and different government regimes.
The writer's name is, I think, Khalid Hosseini.
Yes, that's right.
Khalid Hosseini, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's a long history from my childhood, in Afghanistan. I remember when I was a child, the Soviet war started in Afghanistan, and I remember the village when the war started. I have seen the actual war when I was a child. We refuged to the mountains when there was war ongoing in the villages. I have my house destroyed by bombing. I remember those times when the wars become very tense. There was a huge invasion by the Russian in Panjshir Valley, where I'm from. The resistance was there, but the fight was very intense. The commander at that time, with the name of Ahmad Shah Massoud, I remember he asked all inhabitants, non-warriors, to leave the valley because there will be a huge war at that time, because he feared there will be, if there be a huge or an intense war, there can be huge civilian casualties.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to avoid civilian casualties, he asked the women, children, non-warriors to leave. The majority of the people, they left the valley. That was the turning point for me, when our whole family, we have migrated first via mountains on feet to north of Panjshir, and from there we migrated to the capital, to Kabul. So we were all children, women, and also the elderly person, the young family members or adult family members. They were not with us because they were feared if they go to the capital, they will be arrested by the Kabul regime at that time. So we went with the family together to the capital. And my father, he migrated to refuge to Iran for 2 years. Then when we were in Kabul for 2 years, he came back to a place where there was no control of the government at that time. He invited us to that place. And from that place, the whole family with my father, and we traveled to Pakistan or refuge to Pakistan. I remember, I think it was in 80s. So we went to Pakistan and we settled in Pakistan for 18 years at that time until we had we experienced, or when we heard about the news of 9/11, and then there was an American invasion in Afghanistan.
Right.
After 9/11, when there was a change of the government, we came back to Afghanistan. So during the time that I was in Pakistan for 18 years, it gave me an opportunity to study and to go to school and learn English and study law there. We had hardship, we had difficulties, but it was an opportunity for me to go for education. So when in 2003, I was graduated from the university. When I came back to Afghanistan, I joined certain international organization, including IRC, International Rescue Committee. It was my first job where I was employed as a protection officer. Then I moved to a U.S. organization as a project legal officer. Then I joined the United Nations as a legal officer, working for them as a legal officer. So from 2001 until 2017, until 2016, the situation was stable a little bit, but it got tense. The war continued. The Taliban movement or Taliban regime, they have intensified their attack on government forces, on American or Western forces in Afghanistan, which caused majorly a huge loss for the civilian in Afghanistan. And the losses, or what can I say, actually it has been, or still it is, the people or the civilian, the people are suffering from this kind of conflicts. So when I was in 2015, I thought, I had a family, I had children. No one is safe, because you never know. There could be a bombing anywhere. Because of the suicide bombing, you never know when it's going to happen. And also the insecurity, the having a government which is very weak, and not responsible. They cannot provide basic rights, or they cannot provide for the basic rights of the people. I was thinking, if I can go somewhere else and see if I can give some better opportunity for my kids, at least to study and to have a better life. So at that time, there was an opportunity, especially for those who worked for Americans. There was and there is an opportunity for them to apply for immigration visa, which I did in 2015. I think it was 2014. And it took me around 3 years finally to go to, when I applied from the first time I applied, it took me 3 years finally to get the visa.
Wow.
So it was very exciting at that time for me. At least, when you are in a war zone, you have a different feeling. You think always about the future of yourself, the destiny of yourself, the destiny of your children, what is going to happen. If someone dies, what is going to happen? If elder of the family or the leader of the family goes away, what's going to happen to the children, where they can find food, how they can go to school, who can support them, because there is no system established in those states to protect the families and children. So these are kind of fear we had at that time, and it was very exciting when I got the visa. Then we went through certain other immigration process, and finally we got assistance from international organization for migration to have the ticket ready and having us to support us from the beginning of the trip to until we reached Salt Lake City. Then we got assistance from International Rescue Committee here. They are working for refugees to have us. They had our house or the rental house ready for us, and other basic needs. They had it ready, and slowly and gradually they helped us how to get settled in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a long history, a long
yes,
story.
Yes. No, it wasn't long at all, actually. I'm sure that was a very, very short summary of your life so far. And there's a lot of questions that I wanted to ask you, to just kind of going back to when you left Afghanistan. So you were a child. How old were you when the war was going on with the
I think
Soviets?
I was 8 or 9, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what do you remember from that war?
From that war, I remember the distraction of the whole valley. It was distracted, and I remember the hardship of the families or the people they have suffered, and the poverty. When there is war, you can remember many things, and you remember killings, and I have lots of family or relatives. They have died or they have been killed during the war. I have my auntie. She is now widowed from that war because her husband was actually fighting against Russian at that time. She was very young. She lost her husband. And I have a lot of other family members or relatives. They have died. Not only, the war against Russians, but I have lots of friends and families. They have died fighting against Taliban regime when there was a fight between resistance forces and also the Taliban when they controlled Afghanistan.
Yeah.
3 period. You can, as I remember, when I remember, there was an invasion by Russians. When the Russians, they left, then there was a fight for 5 years among the different factions who could not came together to have a government. So there was from 90 to 95, from 91 to 95, there was a civil war. We can call it civil war, among different factions who wanted to be in power. Then another movement at that time emerged by the name of Taliban. So they came against all these factions. They have finished all factions, including one party which resisted against Taliban. Even the Taliban, they were in control of 95% of Afghanistan. But for 5 years, we had one movement who was the leader or the whole party with some political and military resistance. They resisted against Taliban at that time. Then there was a 9/11 incident. After that, then we have the new government, and the government is still ongoing. but the Taliban, they are still alive, and they are fighting against the government and the Western forces in Afghanistan. Nowadays, the insecurity, the situation, and everything, the economy, the government, everything is not stable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just from my understanding is that, so in 79, the Soviet army invaded Afghanistan to to keep communism alive, right? Because at that time, Afghanistan was a communist government. Yeah. And then I believe the Afghans did not want that, right?
Yes.
And obviously the US was also against communism, and that was during the Cold War period as well. And so then the Soviet troops ended up withdrawing because they just couldn't defeat the forces there.
When the Russians they left Afghanistan, at that time there was no kind of major or any big thing by the name of Taliban.
Okay.
There were different other groups at that time fighting the Russians or the government which were installed by the Russians, right? We had 7 major groups or major parties or military parties. They were fighting. There was no united front against the Russians at that time. There were different ethnic groups or political groups or military groups, different, divided, but they were common in one thing, to fight against the government or against the Russians there. So these 7 groups, when the Russians they left, the government collapsed. At that time, there was no preparation among these groups, no coordination among these 7 groups to have a government acceptable by all parties and to build the institutions and to have a constitution agreeable by the people or by all groups, and from there to move. So what happened at that time when the government collapsed? So one party wanted to have the control, which was not acceptable by others. From that time, the war started. And there was a huge war which caused a lot of losses at that time for 5 years, especially the war was in the capital. The whole capital was destroyed for 5 years.
Wow.
And nothing, no major change has happened. And this was one of the reasons, apparently, the Taliban, they emerged as a military and political group. They said these parties, they are not capable of controlling the country. We are. They claim that they are the people who can bring peace, stability, and prosperity to the people. So therefore, they started from the south of the country, and they slowly, and they have emerged very, very fast, and they control the whole country. At the beginning, the people, they were very happy because of the 5 years of war. These groups, they could not bring any changes to the people.
Right.
So the people were very happy from them. And to a certain extent, they were right. The only one thing that you can say that at that time there was some kind of peace. The people, they were feeling very secure at that time. But when they controlled the capital, when they came to have the capital, from there, the resistance against Taliban started on various reasons, including the fact that Taliban, they were biased, against certain groups. They were not liking certain people. They were prosecuting certain people, for nothing. And they were not giving rights to the woman.
Right.
There was no freedom. So there a resistance started, and the resistance continued for 5 years. Even the Taliban, they were controlling the majority of the territory in Afghanistan, but the resistance forces, led by Ahmad Shah Massoud, a very legendary commander and political leader, who is very famous. You can Google him. He resisted against Taliban. So what has happened? Like 5 days, 5 days or 6 days before 9/11, he was assassinated. He was assassinated, and the resistance forces against Taliban, they were very afraid, or they were scared that when their leader is assassinated, the Taliban, they will take control of the whole country, and they were feared that the resistance forces and the people who are living in those areas, they will be prosecuted and killed by Taliban. Then after the assassination of Ahmad Shah Massoud, like by 3 or 4 days, the 9/11 attack has happened, which invoked the Western groups, including the United States, to start their operation against Taliban.
Right.
And they were able to finish or to demolish the government of Taliban, and they installed a new government. I hope I could explain.
No, I think it's great. I think you've done a wonderful job. And when I think for a lot of people, they kind of think the Taliban and Al-Qaeda are the same, but they're actually, so Al-Qaeda is the terrorist organization, right, that Osama bin Laden was ahead of. The Taliban is the actual regime in Afghanistan. And so the US was saying that the Taliban was providing a safe haven for Al-Qaeda, right? So after 9/11, obviously no one will ever forget 9/11. Shortly after that, the US invaded Afghanistan. At that time, you weren't in Afghanistan yet, right? You were still in Pakistan?
Yes. Yeah. When there was an attack against Taliban, I was at the university. Yeah.
When all of that was happening, like, what were you thinking about? Like, what was going on in your mind?
I was following the news. Pakistan is not very, very far from us, and we had, still we had our heart and mind, with the country, and this is something natural. We were following Afghanistan news and what's going to happen. What we have to do. All these things. The majority of the people, they were very happy from the collapse of the Taliban regime, and they were hoping that there will be something good to happen in Afghanistan. We were very optimistic at that time. A new government, a new state, a new hope will come. But unfortunately, for various reasons, including the intervention of the foreign and the neighboring states, neighboring countries, these hopes could not have been fulfilled. And we could not achieve as we hoped to achieve with the assistance that we had and the huge resources which were brought by the foreign countries, including the United States, to the government. We could not use those opportunities. And there were various reasons, including the fact the government or the leaders which were supported by the Western countries, including the United States, and the leaders, they were corrupt. They were not thinking about the country. They were thinking about themselves, and they were thinking about their own fictions, about their own friends. They have taken sides. They did not, had a vision for the whole country. There were many reasons which led to, not having a stable state that can have the people at least, relatively happy.
So really there was a lot of help pouring into Afghanistan from different Western countries, a lot of resources, but unfortunately, those resources weren't spread out to the people, right? It was just the political parties, or they were taking those resources for themselves essentially, and
there was corruption and corruption and corruption. Very, very little thing, reached to the people.
Yeah. Wow. So what brought you back to Afghanistan? So you were in Pakistan. So in 2003, you went back to Afghanistan, or that's when you graduated?
When I graduated in 2003, so we were thinking that now it's time to go back to home. And there is a new democracy, a government, election, we were hoping that things are not going now are going to change.
Right.
So therefore we had to go back. And at the meantime, what is happening in the neighboring country, including Pakistan, so the refugees or Afghans who are living there, they do not have any kind of human rights protected there. You do not have any document there. They do not give you, if you live forever there, you cannot get citizenship, you cannot buy a house, you cannot be employed by the government, or even they do not give you any job that you are entitled to. So you do not have the basic right, for example, as their own citizens have. So you had to leave. You do not have, more choices there.
I see. What made you study law?
What made me to study law? Because I was very interested to, having law. I don't know. It was, how can I say, very interested in being someone to be able to defend, to protect the people, to provide legal services. I had a kind of passion to help the people through various means, including being an advocate for them. So this was the main reason that I have chosen law. I'm not only, I didn't have only studied law there, but the International Islamic University in Islamabad, it provides a bachelor degree, a combined degree of studying both law and the Islamic law. So I studied both the Islamic law and the Western law together at that time. Therefore, I had to learn both languages, including Arabic and English.
So you graduated university, you have, your degree, and then you're obviously, for reasons, like you said, it'd be very hard to get a job in Pakistan if you had stayed there just because of your legal status, right? And so that's similar to a lot of people here in the US who don't have legal status. A lot of opportunities can be very limited. And so when you went back to Afghanistan, what was your plan? What were you going to do?
My plan was to, if you go after 18 years back to your country, you are another refugee there, right? So you left the country for 18 years. Now you are coming back. You don't have a house to live. So the house was destroyed by the Russians at that time. And we didn't have, when we left, we were very small. When we came back, we were a big family. So the first thing was to find a place to live. Therefore, I started building a house to have a job. Then the family started, having schooling for the kids. So these were plans, and at the meantime, I was looking for, some good jobs to have those plans fulfilled economically.
Was it hard to find a job in Afghanistan?
It was hard, yes. It was, especially in the beginning, it was very hard when I came from university. So I didn't have any experience of working. It was difficult to to convince someone or any company or any organization to employ you because they said you don't have any experience.
Yeah.
So the first job was with the IRC. It was like it gave me an opportunity to learn.
And what did you do for them there?
I was first called, my title was protection specialist. We were working on two major things. One was to give training to IRC staff about the right of refugees and immigrants and returnees. The other thing was that, three main things. The first was to have a house preparation for the staff members to understand who are refugees and what are their rights legally. The second one was to work with the government to build their capacity to help people who are returning back at that time. When there was a change of the government, there was a huge amount or an incredible amount of the people who were refugees in the neighboring countries who were returning back. So the aim of IRC was to build the capacity of the government to help those people when people are coming back from the legal point, from protection point of view, and from economic point of view. So my main focus was two things: helping the government or building the capacity of the government through trainings. And the other thing was to build the capacity of the IRC staff members themselves. One of the major things that we have done at that time was to have, because one of the issue was at that time, there was, when refugees, they went out of the country, their property were taken by either the people, private people, or by the government or whoever. They did not have any control over their property. So at that time, we worked with the specialists and also with the government of Afghanistan at that time. At that time, there was a constitutional committee working on the draft of the constitution. So we worked at that time very hard to convince the constitutional committee to include certain articles of the constitution of Afghanistan to protect the property right of the people, which was included at that. So there was, I don't remember, it was a long time before we were working on some other things too, I think.
So then after the IRC, you moved to, you said, some different U.S. organizations, and then eventually you ended up at the UN, right?
Yeah.
What did you do for the UN? And how did that happen?
How it happened? You mean how?
Like, how did you end up getting involved with the UN?
Oh, yes. I was working before UN. I was working as a project legal officer for the United States Institute of Peace for 1.5 years, something like that. That's another story, the Institute of the United States Institute of Peace. So at that time, I was looking for a kind of career development, to have a better position. This is the natural human being. We are looking for something better, right?
Yeah.
Then I found some good jobs at the UN. I don't know if you are aware, when there was post 9/11, there was a Security Council resolution to establish an entity, a UN entity, a political entity, a UN political entity in Afghanistan to support the government and the people of Afghanistan. And they gave it the name of United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan. So there is a mission, and still there is a mission established by the Security Council and it's mandated extended on annual basis. So they are working. They call it United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, and the shortest name for it is UNAMA. So that entity or UN entity, they are working on various issues, including the human rights, political and electoral issues. So they had certain positions on human rights at that time for which I applied. So I have gone through certain interview and also the test. I was selected for that. So I worked as a human rights officer.
Wow, that's awesome.
For 1 year, and from there, I had another opportunity as a legal officer announced by the organization. So I moved from human rights officer to the legal officer there.
Wow, that's so cool. So then you ended up, so you had mentioned how you came to the US, obviously it was through, so it's called the Special Immigrant Visa. Mm-hmm. And it's for people who have, if they meet certain requirements where they help the US government in some way, they can essentially immigrate to the US. So what did you work on? Was it doing that? It wasn't doing the work with the UN, right? Or was it with a different US organization?
It was working for the US.
Oh, it was, okay. It was working for the US. So was this after the UN job?
It was before the UN.
Oh, okay.
Before the UN, yeah.
I see. Okay. So based on your work with the US organization before the UN, that's how you qualified for the Special Immigrant Visa.
Yes.
I see. Okay. So just going back to, and you've done some amazing work, and I think that's the thing. And that's one of the things with this podcast is that, I really want people to know the stories of immigrants. I think sometimes people just brush off immigrants as, they're either uneducated or they just come from a background that's maybe not such a good background. Or I just think that some people have such a negative view of immigrants. I mean, you're just somebody who had an amazing career before you came here, and you're very educated. You're well-spoken. And I want people to understand that about other people. So thank you for sharing that. I think you've done amazing work. And, I think we talked about this before, is when I was in law school, I thought I wanted to do something with international law in some way. And so I think it's really cool that you got to do that. Mm-hmm. So going back to when you went back to Afghanistan, and just during that time of being in Afghanistan, and, you were there when the US troops were there, what was kind of the day-to-day like? Was it where you walked down the street and you had to be very vigilant about things, like where you were always worried, like, okay, could there be a suicide bombing that might happen? What was the day-to-day like?
From 2003 to 2006, it was, there was some bombing, some security incidents. We were not very scared. Mm-hmm. But after that, the day-to-day business was, you were, everyone was in state of fear. So, because the suicide bombing is something you never know, when it's going to happen and where it happens. You suddenly, there is a vehicle exploded somewhere, and you see, and every week you have 2 or 3 major incidents happens, and lots of people, they are killed, and there is damage to the people psychologically, and there is state of fear. So this was the whole. I think the anti-government forces, it was their strategy to create fear and to create some kind of psychologically atmosphere to show to the world, to the other states, that they are powerful and they can control, and the government forces and also the international community there, they cannot do anything. So this was their strategy, which worked for them, and still it's working. The people, they are in fear.
Mm-hmm.
How can I say that day-to-day businesses, that even if you make a good plan for yourself, this is what you are going to do, there could be a lot of obstacles against those plans, against what you wanted to do. So this is the daily life of the people.
Was it common to see just U.S. troops just walking around in the streets, armored vehicles? Was that common?
Yeah, it is common, and it was common. The U.S. troops, they were not walking. They were in their, what they say in military term, they said they were in their convoys.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you feel like, did the Afghans welcome the U.S. troops? I mean, maybe initially, and how did their sentiment progress over time as Americans, the troops continue to stay there?
I think at the beginning there was a kind of welcoming by the people at the beginning, because they were tired of Taliban. Mm-hmm. So, what happens is, when you are in a very difficult situation and someone will say, I'm going to rescue you, they will think he or she is the rescuer. Whoever you are, we want you. Just come. And it takes time, for the people to understand what's going on. So at that time, the people, they were very happy, but gradually, the minds or the mindset of the people, that changed. So because they did not see a major progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm sure there were just so many factors that played into everything, right? I mean, I'm sure it was hard to implement change. Do you think that, so, just as an American, what I've heard in mainstream media, I don't ever really hear anything positive coming out of Afghanistan, right? It's always like bombings and war. And mm-hmm. Do you feel like the media has portrayed Afghanistan accurately?
Well, when you work in media, the question is, what subject or what area of society you are covering? Mm-hmm. This is the question. So if you are covering only war and political situation, which is not a good news.
Right.
It's not a good news for the people, but it may be a good news for the journalism, right? Mm-hmm. Because it catches a lot of attention. It can be a breaking news. The bad news is good news always for journalism. Mm-hmm. If they are covering this aspect, they may be right? Because they are only covering the political incidents, the military development, the war, the casualties. This is one side of the story. But of course, the society has different dimensions. They have culture, they have religion, they have society, they have families, economy, the way of life, many other things which were ignored by the media, of course.
Right.
So, which the people or the journalism, they may not be, what do you call? They may not be interested, to cover those. I don't know. I have seen a documentary. One guy, he went to Afghanistan. He is a Jewish guy. He had a very good aspect. He covered the good aspect. He himself went to, some days before, I think it was 2-3 months before he went to Afghanistan during the pandemic. He covered, a lot of good things about Afghanistan, including the natural beauty of Afghanistan, the hospitality, the people they have, a very simple life, without this major complex system of the government, There is nothing, that you have to think about. There is no fear of insurance. There is no fear of vehicle. There is no fear of if someone is going to get sick, we have to find insurance.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of good things about the country which is not covered.
Yeah. So what are some of those good things that you would like people to know about?
First, very simple thing, when you want to go to someone's house, you don't need an appointment. Just go. They will provide you hospitality. They will receive you. They will be very happy.
Yeah.
Right? You don't need to call someone that if you want to visit them, just go and visit them. Right? When you are a guest, you are a guest. Everyone thinks that we have a guest and we have to make him or her happy. When you are in Afghanistan, you should not be feared about the medical insurance. You are covered.
Yeah.
If you have a small amount of money, if you do not have, there will be a medical assistance to you. There will be a medical provider. And you do not need an appointment to see a doctor.
That's good.
Just
I can
go,
take here. Yeah.
Just go to the hospital or go to a doctor, they will treat you. There is a natural beauty in Afghanistan. Afghanistan has very good climates. So especially Utahns, they will be shocked to see Afghanistan has a kind of climate like Utah. It has mountains, it has snows, it's pretty like Salt Lake City. And there is one of the major things is that the communities or the people there, they have a support. There is no system or any official system of supporting, but the people who know each other, they have a kind of support. When there is a bad incident happens, the community of the people, you will have their support, in all kind of issues that you have. The people are very connected to each other. I don't know, there are many things. What should I say? And we have families. The families, they are living together, for a long time. Parents, the children, when they get adults, even when they get married, they try to live together. When the families get very big, then they separate each other. But there is no elderly house in Afghanistan. The children, they take care of their parents.
Yeah.
Whatever they are, how many years they are, how sick they are. We feel responsibility of taking care of them. And there has been some kind of initiative by a certain human rights group to establish shelter for the elderly, which did not work because nobody went there.
Yeah.
These are good things, about Afghanistan.
Yeah, that's so great. And, these are things that you just don't hear about in the news, like unless I guess maybe if you're searching for other news stories about Afghanistan other than the war, maybe, but, I didn't know any of this. And
the other thing is that, despite of war, the bad economy, Afghanistan is a cheap place to live. It's not very expensive.
Would you say that, obviously war is very destructive, but would you say that at least maybe in Kabul, that the city is intact as far as like buildings, and are buildings intact and things not in ruins?
Yes, of course. Post-war, post 9/11, what has happened, there has been a lot of construction in capital. So there are lots of tall buildings, lots of houses, which made the from the infrastructure point of view, it's not very, they are not built in a very good standard, but the capital has been it has grown very fast, and it's very big. Lots of buildings, lots of roads has been, made. I cannot trust them, but they are there.
Yeah. So as far as, you coming to America, obviously, ultimately what it came to is security, and obviously security for your family. And that was really your main driver. You've had a great career there, but you were willing to leave that behind to provide security for your family. What were your thoughts as far as what it would be like in America? Like, what was your perception of it? And then when you actually came here, were you like, okay, this is totally different? Or was it like, okay, this is what I was expecting?
I was not expecting to have a job in America that I had in Afghanistan. That was the first thing. And I was expecting to have a smooth transition from Kabul to Salt Lake City, which was smooth, but I was not expecting certain organizations, including IOM representative, to be in some way not very, professional. I know when I came to Chicago, our first, landing was in Chicago. The behavior of the immigration officers and the way that we were treated, I was not expecting that we will be treated like that. This was something not very. I had a different perspective. I was thinking of you as very perfect, which was, in a certain way, it was good, but still, there are lots of things to be done, really.
And I'm assuming that your experience when you were in Afghanistan working with refugees coming in, you had a certain way of handling things, right? Back then. And the way that it was handled here was obviously different from how you would have done it, right? If you were in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how many kids do you have?
I have 6.
6. And how old are they?
I have got from 19 to 5.
So what did they think about coming here? Were they excited, or were they like, please, I want to stay in Afghanistan?
The kids, they are those kids who are now in teenage, they are happy here. And those who are like in 10s, 8, they don't have any clue what was Afghanistan was here, really.
Yeah.
I had one, she was not very happy. And she was complaining about life here. And she was saying that the relation here in this society is not very real. It seems to be very fake. And she was saying that lots of people that she feels that people who are smiling, they give you fake smiles. It's not true. And there is fear of that she was, I don't know, she was explaining, but finally I found out that she is suffering from certain kind of depression today. Therefore, I took leave from home, from the work, and took her to Afghanistan for 1 month.
Yeah.
With the kind of hope that it's time for her to study or to have the experience of the other life. Then she can make a good decision. So in January, I took her to Afghanistan, where she stayed for 1 month. And then I told her now, I asked her if it is her choice to stay in Afghanistan, she can stay with her grandparents. I mean, my mother and my father. If she doesn't, she can go back to America. Finally, she decided to come back. Now she's good. Now she's going back to school. She's happy.
Oh, good. That's good. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah. And I have the others, they are very happy from here. The way that teachers, they are treating them, they are very happy.
Good.
I think overall, to be honest, we have been treated very well in this state. I do not remember any kind of major, any huge issue that I have faced. Apart from, employment, that's something that I have to deal with. But, overall, we have been treated well.
Good. That's good to hear. I'm glad. So about your employment, so lawyer before, and now your employment is very different. And tell the listeners what you do now for work.
I do food services at the cafeteria of the University of Utah Hospital. I do 4 days there. And beside that, sometimes I drive for Lyft.
Yep, and that's how I met.
I have a plan because one thing is very close. I thought about being a lawyer here. I think it's too late for me now to go to law school or whatever and to go through all these processes again. It will be a lot of time consuming for me. I'm planning to do some real, something, what do you call real estate agent, or to have a license to go I think I have to do certain courses which can qualify me for having the license, and I can be a kind of sell agent or whatever, real property agent. So this is what I'm thinking about. But my main focus is on the kids to have a better education and having a better life.
Yeah. And like we talked about, I'm sure that they will appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they do. And, when I was younger, I didn't really appreciate the sacrifices my parents made coming to America with us. But as an adult, I do appreciate it. And I wouldn't be talking to you right now, right? If my parents didn't make that sacrifice, or in other words, maybe that investment into our futures. And as far as being too old, so I don't think you're too old. I remember in my law school class, we had a woman, I want to say she was in her 70s.
70s.
Yeah,
Wow.
She was in her 70s and she decided she wanted to go to law school. And I think she did. So if law school is on your mind and if it's something you still want to do, I don't think it's too late. I know it'll take some time and, things like that. But if it's something you wanted to pursue, I certainly think you could. And you're smart, you're educated, and I don't think you'd have a problem doing that.
I will think about it, really.
So if you were to make the decision again, right? If you were in Afghanistan and you had the choice to come to America, knowing what you know now, having been here, would you still come?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
I would have chosen to come.
Yeah.
Yes.
What would you say that what's something that you love the most about America?
The freedom. You have the justice, or the what they call it. Yeah, the freedom and justice. These are I'm not saying that it's because of we have in America we have perfect, everything is perfect,
right?
But I'm thinking it relatively,
right, compared to Afghanistan.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is something that I really admire. We have a relatively a freedom and a justice. This is the thing. These are the things that that really it has to be appreciated.
Yeah.
And The other main thing that you would laugh about America is that the majority of the people, they have a positive view of everything. When you have an issue, if you reach anybody, if you reach a government official, if you reach a private or any person, there is a positive view to have your issue resolved.
Mm-hmm.
This is the mentality here, which I find that contrary back to my country. If you have an issue, if you reach, especially the people who are in charge, they try to make your problem harder. There is no kind of attention to resolve. They wanted to make it harder because they are corrupt. This is, which attracts you, and you feel blessed in this country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that a lot of us take for granted what we have in this country because we haven't lived anywhere else where there's no freedom or there's, a lot of corruption. And yeah, I think from somebody who comes from another country where those things were not really.
I can give you the example, for example. If you want to have your license plate renewed in Utah, how much time it will take you?
Not much time at all.
Maybe 10 minutes, right?
Right.
You go to the DMV and you have your all thing ready.
Mm-hmm.
It may not take you 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Because there has been a mentality to help, and they have created a system of providing service to the people to be efficient and to take less time and to make the people happy, right? Which they have done it already. If I want to renew my license plate in Afghanistan, if I want to do it myself, it may take me at least 1 week. Why it is like that? Because the system is corrupt. They want to make it hard on you because in order to pay them money. So this is the example of everything. Every kind of services that, for example, the government is in charge. They are making everything hard on the people. Therefore, politically, the people are isolated. They feel they are, they keep distance from the government. They do not have any trust on the institutions. The people, they hate their government because there is no trust.
Right.
And which they are right. So these are a kind of small examples that you will have about how the things are working here and there.
Yeah. I mean, I've learned a lot just in speaking with you. And I know that the listeners will also learn a lot as well about the culture. And I hope that it also dispels some of the stereotypes that people have about Afghanistan. And, I say this in my intro episode of the podcast. It's like 2 minutes or so, just explaining the reason why I created it, is that I hope that people realize that ultimately we all want the same thing. We all want security. We all want a sense of freedom. We all want to grow. And even though you're from Afghanistan and really anybody, anywhere, we all want those same things. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was amazing. And please keep in touch. I want to know, as you go after your goals, I'd love to hear about them.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure to talk to you, Lynn.
Of course, you're so welcome. And thank you so, so much. And it was awesome to hear your story.